Almost everyone says gossip is bad. Parents warn their children about it. Teachers discourage it. Managers complain about it. People criticize it, mock it, condemn it. And yet, humans spend an astonishing amount of time doing it. At work, at school, at family gatherings, at parties, online, almost everywhere. But imagine trying to survive without it. No warnings, no reputations, no way to know who can be trusted, no way to know who might betray you, no way to know who has a history of helping others or taking advantage of them. For most of human history, that could be dangerous, possibly fatal. And that's what makes gossip so strange. Because despite its terrible reputation, humans have been doing it for thousands of years. Across cultures, across continents, across generations. Why? If gossip is truly useless, why has every known human society developed some version of it? What if gossip isn't a flaw in human nature? What if it's one of the features? That sounds ridiculous. Until you look at human history. Because the story of gossip begins long before social media. Long before newspapers. Long before writing. Long before civilization itself. It begins in a world where information about other people could mean the difference between life and death. And to understand that world, we first need to understand a problem our ancestors couldn't avoid. Trust. Imagine meeting a stranger. Would you trust them? Probably not. Now imagine that stranger might determine whether your family survives the winter. Suddenly, trust becomes much more important. For most of human history, survival depended on cooperation. Humans are not the strongest animals. We are not the fastest. We are not the largest. We survived because we worked together. But cooperation has a problem. It only works when people can trust each other. And trust is surprisingly difficult. Especially once human groups started becoming larger. In a small community, everyone knows everyone. You can observe people's behavior directly. You know who shares food, who keeps promises, who contributes, who causes trouble. Trust is visible. But over time, human communities grew. More people, more relationships, more complexity, and eventually something changed. You could no longer personally know everyone. You couldn't witness every act of generosity. You couldn't observe every betrayal. You couldn't monitor every member of your group. And once that happened, a dangerous question emerged. How do you know who deserves your trust? That question may have changed human history. Because once humans could no longer personally observe everyone, information about people became one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Imagine making a mistake about the wrong person. You trust someone who steals. You rely on someone who lies. You share resources with someone who never returns the favor. Today, that's frustrating. 10,000 years ago, it could be dangerous. Possibly fatal. And that's why information about people became so valuable. You can't be everywhere. You can't see everything. You can't watch everyone all the time. So humans developed a shortcut. They talked. They exchanged social information. Who's trustworthy? Who's dangerous? Who's generous? Who's selfish? Who's reliable? Who's not? Imagine two hunters returning to camp. One has a reputation for sharing food. The other has a reputation for keeping the best portions for himself. Which one would you rather cooperate with? The answer seems obvious. But here's the important detail. That reputation may have reached you through conversation, through stories, through information shared by other people. Anthropologists believe this may have been one of humanity's most important social innovations. Not because people were bored, not because they enjoyed drama, but because the information mattered. In many ways, gossip became an ancient information network, a primitive social database. Long before books, long before newspapers, long before the internet, humans were already collecting, storing, and sharing information about one another. And as groups became larger, that information became increasingly powerful. Because once information starts spreading, something even more valuable begins to emerge. Reputation. Here's something strange. People care deeply about what other people think of them, sometimes more than they care about reality itself. A damaged reputation can hurt. An insult can linger for years. Embarrassment can keep people awake at night. Why? Why would opinions inside someone else's head matter so much? Because for most of human history, those opinions often had consequences. A good reputation could attract allies, support, protection, cooperation, opportunities. A bad reputation could do the opposite. If people believed you were dishonest, they might avoid you. If people believed you were selfish, they might refuse to help you. If people believed you were dangerous, they might exclude you completely. Suddenly, reputation becomes more than a social concept. It becomes a survival asset. And gossip becomes one of the forces that shapes it. This creates a fascinating feedback loop. People care about their reputation. Because they care about their reputation, they adjust their behavior. Because behavior changes, cooperation becomes easier. Trust becomes easier. Communities become more stable. In other words, gossip doesn't merely spread information. It changes behavior, which leads to an uncomfortable question. What would happen if gossip disappeared completely? Let's perform a thought experiment. Imagine that gossip suddenly disappears. Nobody talks about anyone who isn't present. Ever. No rumors. No reputations. No warnings. No social information. At first, it sounds wonderful. Less drama. Less conflict. Less judgment. More privacy. But then something unexpected happens. Trust becomes harder. Cooperation becomes riskier. Bad actors become more difficult to identify. Dishonest behavior becomes easier to hide. And information about trustworthiness becomes harder to spread. This is where the story becomes surprising. Some researchers argue that gossip may have helped humans build larger societies, because it allowed information to travel farther than direct observation. It allowed communities to reward cooperation, to discourage selfish behavior, to reinforce social norms, to identify individuals who repeatedly violated trust. Of course, gossip can be harmful. It can be inaccurate, cruel, manipulative, destructive. Humans are perfectly capable of abusing the system, but abuse doesn't necessarily erase the original function. Money can be abused. Technology can be abused. Language can be abused. Yet all remain useful. The same may be true for gossip. At its best, it acts as a social monitoring system. One that encourages cooperation even when nobody appears to be watching. And if gossip helped ancient communities survive, why does it still have such a powerful hold on us today? The strange thing is that your brain is still running ancient software. You probably don't need gossip to survive a hunt. You probably don't need social information to avoid starvation. And yet, you still care. You still notice reputation. You still wonder what other people think. You still pay attention to status. You still become curious about social information. Why? Because the world changed faster than the human brain. The same cognitive machinery that once tracked tribe members now tracks celebrities, influencers, coworkers, neighbors, and sometimes complete strangers on the internet. The technology changed. The platforms changed. The scale changed. But the instinct remained. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, understanding other people was a survival skill. Who could be trusted? Who might help? Who might betray? Who belonged? And who didn't? Information about people became one of the most valuable resources a human could possess. And perhaps that's why gossip never disappeared. Because beneath the rumors, beneath the drama, beneath the entertainment, an ancient survival instinct still survives. A reminder that human beings evolved not only to understand the world around them, but to understand each other. Because survival was never just about finding food or avoiding predators. It was about navigating relationships, building trust, maintaining cooperation, and staying connected to the people around us. Because long before gossip became entertainment, it was information. And long before it became information, it was survival. And that's the human echo. Because history isn't behind us. It's inside us.